Hi all, good morning. Hope everyone is able to see my screen and able to hear my voice, right? Yeah. Today, today we will discuss about the time travel and the failsafe. These are the two important concepts which everyone need to understand. What do you mean by time travel and what do you mean by a failsafe? Okay. So time travel is nothing but it's we are traveling back into the time and looking like how our data is going to be at that particular point of time. Okay. So maximum time that we can travel back is going to be a 90 days. Let us consider that today. So today we are working on the 0th day. This is the current state that we are working. So you can, if you want to see how the data how data is going to be present yesterday, then we can travel back one day. You can travel back for one day, and we can see how the data looks like yesterday. And similarly, you can travel back 2 days, and the day, how the data. Let us consider we have a table named data. Table name as T1, and this is the we have the records. Today we have the 20 records, but whereas yesterday we have only 16 records, 16 different records, or whatever that we have the 16 different records. So if someone want to see the data how yesterday the data, what is the data yesterday is available, we can travel back in time and we can see the state how the data looks like a one day back. Similarly, we can travel back until a period of 90 days. The default is going to be a one day for the enterprise editions, and standard edition you have only one, zero or 1 days, and for enterprise edition you can travel back until 90 days. For the standard edition it's going to be a one day. Okay, we can travel back in time until a maximum of 90 days. We can see how the data looks like at that particular point of time. Okay, the default is going to be a one day, then we need to modify, can modify any days between 1 to 90 days. You can set it's a based on the project requirement, based on the necessity. The team will decide, the management will decide what is the time period that we are going to specify for the time travel. Okay, let me explain from this. It's like time travel is nothing but a retention period. We are going to how many days we are going to retain the data that was modified or dropped or changed from the current state. Other than the current state, if there is any inserts happen, any updates happen, how many days we are going to retain the changes is going to be a retention period, and we can specify the retention period of maximum 90 days from the enterprise edition for the enterprise edition, and we are going to the default is going to be a one day. Okay, we can the retention period can be specified at two levels. Okay, you can specify the retention period. The retention period can be specified at how the retention period. The retention period can be specified at the either at the account level or at the database level. Object level. Object could be, you can specify the object. You can specify either for the database. You can specify either for the schema, either for the table. We can specify either for the entire account, or you can specify for the any particular object. Let us consider for the account you have set it as a 21 days, and for any specific object, for any specific database, if you are going to specify it as a 28 days, then whichever is max, it is going to consider max of 21 28, and it is going to for it it's going to be a 28 for this particular database. Okay, if you created a new table and if you are going to set for a 18 days, 16 days, let us consider, then for your account it has a 21 days, then it is going to consider as a 21 days of maximum data retention policy for the based on the whichever is max, either for the account or object. We will see the different parameters how we can set that. Okay, it's like you can configure the retention policy either for the table, schema, as well as the databases and the accounts. Okay, if you can see we have the multiple editions, right? Like standard edition, enterprise, business critical, and a virtual private. So for the standard edition, you can utilize the feature of time travel only for one day. It doesn't, you cannot go beyond one day, cannot travel back beyond one day for the if you are using the standard edition. If you are using any of the editions other than standard edition, we can set a time period of maximum 90 days for the retention policy. whatever the data that got modified will be retained for a period of 90 days, maximum period of 90 days in the enterprise, business critical, or virtual private cloud editions. Okay, we have two parameters to set these. We are going to have two parameters to set this retention policy. Okay, the parameter name is minimum data retention time in days and data retention. These are the two parameters which where we can set the retention policies. Okay, if you are using the minimum data retention time in days, this parameter is applicable for the entire account. You can set for based on this parameter, using this parameter minimum data retention time in days, we can set for the entire account. This is applicable for the entire account, which can set until a maximum of 90 days. For the enterprise edition, for the standard edition, we can have the value of 0 or 1. For the next remaining business critical and virtual private cloud, you can set for the 0 to 90 days as well. Okay, this is applicable if you are going to set this. This is applicable for the entire account. Let us consider you based on the account you have created one database and you don't require any of the retention policy for that particular database, and you can use the parameter data retention time in days. This parameter is used to split for the either you can set this either at the account level as well as the database schema and table level. So if you set the both the values, then which value will be considered is it is nothing but a maximum of data retention time in days and minimum retain, whichever is max it will be considered. Okay, let me show you that. So we have a parameters like these are the two parameters. Okay, I have changed these values. Let me modify it to the default. Minimum data retention is default. The default is going to be these two parameters here, right? The minimum data retention time in days, the default value just I have updated earlier, just I am changing to default minimum data retention days. It is going to be a 0. This is the parameter which you can set for the entire account level. There is another parameter data retention time in days, which defaults to the 1. Default value and current value is 1. So if you want to change this, we can change the minimum data retention period for the maximum of 90 days. Just you can execute the command alter set. If you can see, the data retention policy will be moved to 90 days. This is applicable for the entire account. Okay, the effective retention time for entity in the entire account. This is maximum for the 90 days. The data, whatever the data that you are going to modify, it will be available for the 90 days. Okay, then if you try to set the time period more than the 90 days, it will throw you error. Exceeds maximum allowable retention time days in 90 days. This is the time period which the maximum time period you need to set is going to be a 90 days. If you are going to set for a period more than 90 days, it will throw you an error. This is how we are going to set the minimum data retention. This is again, it's an admin activity where we don't have any actions we cannot take from the developer point of view. Actually, admins will decide based on the business criteria and requirement. They are going to set the retention policies, the number of dates it's required. Okay, this retention policy we can modify either for the table. If you want to create the if you want to, it can be set for the entire object level. Let us create one database. We're going to create the database. For the object level, we are going to specify it as a sorry. We can give data retention as days time. So the data retention is going to be a 9 days. The data in 90 days because the minimum data retention is set on the account. Okay, if you see here, though we have created as a 9 days here, it is saying that as it is going to be a minimum data retention is 90 days. So the database is going to consider the maximum of 9 and 90. So it's going to be a 90 days for this particular database as well. So we can, if you want to, if you say that, let us modify this. So at the account level, I'm going to set it as a 9, and here I'm going to set it as a 4. Sorry, 12. So now this particular database T8 had created with the data retention time in days for a 12 days. So maximum, though it's a at the account level we have set it as a 9 days, it is going to consider as a 12 days as we have set the explicitly we have set this parameter for the for this particular database object. So as if you can see here, we have a two parameters which can be defined at the account level. Minimum data retention time in days is a account level parameter which we can define for the entire account. There is another parameter named data retention time in days. This is the parameter where we can set either for the account database schema or the table. So if you are going to set the data retention for the account 28 days, and if you are going to give 13 days for any particular object, then it is going to consider max of 28 comma 13. It's going to be a 28, whichever is maximum. If you are setting at the account level 12 and the database level it says 3, it will consider the 12 days, whichever is. So 12 is the maximum data retention days. It will going to preserve the 12 days whatever the changes that you have modified. Similarly 6 and 8, if it will be stored at the 8 days. Similarly 3 and 2, it will be a 3 days. Okay, hope everyone is able to understand the difference between these two parameters. Minimum data, for if you are going to, one account can contain multiple databases, can contain multiple database. Okay, if you are setting, if you are going to set the parameter minimum data retention, this will be applicable for the all the DBs that whichever present in our Snowflake. So if you use this parameter, it will be applicable for only either you can set based on the object like schema, table, or else a database. Okay. Any doubts between the? Hope everyone is able to understand the difference between these two parameters. Which is the account level? What is the account level parameter and what is a object level parameter which will be considered? What is the value that it is going to be considered? Okay, any doubts here between the difference between? Hope everyone is able to understand the difference between these two parameters. Okay, yeah. So we have this is going to be a, so we are going to reserve the data for a maximum of 90 days. Let us consider that if you, there are the three different ways that we can fetch the data. If the data is lost or data if you want to retrieve, then we can use the utter before command. We can clone the at particular point of time how the data looks like. You can clone that entire data into another table. If you unexpectedly or intentionally dropped any of the database schema, then no, Raj, you are not audible. Am I audible?
Yes, Mohan. You're audible.
Yeah. Raju, once check your audio settings, Raju. Actually, I'm not sure. I'm not able to hear you. Sure, Raju. If you have any doubt, you can text me, or else you can, once your audio issues resolved, you can ask that. Okay. So it's a continuous data production. So it's like we are going to very validate the data, how the data looks like at the particular point of time. What you can do, what is the necessity to, what is the necessity, what is the possibility that you can do with the time travel is whatever the data that got updated, how it the data looks like before it get updated, how the data looks like before it got deleted, we can view the data. Okay, and if you unexpectedly or intentionally dropped any of the tables, schemas or tables, we can undrop that. We can create, we can clone that at a particular point of time. If someone asks that particular point of time we need to test the data, we can clone that data and we can share that data for the testing team as well. Okay, this can be done in a three different ways. Okay, one is using the timestamp, offset and query. So let us do it this practically. Creating one database. Creating one schema in that particular database. I'm creating one table. I'm taking two records into this table. So now our table with the data has contains the two records. Okay, with the two columns, we have two records. Now let us say someone comes and drop this particular database. Drop and undrop, it's very familiar. Everyone might be aware whoever worked in the SQL environment. So if you drop is permanently deleting the data. So if you are going to drop this, if you are going to let us drop this particular database. I mean to say let us drop this particular database, right? Drop database first TB. So we have dropped this first TB. If you can refresh here, our database got dropped. Okay. Now if you want to undrop it, let us just give the undrop database, whatever the database that we got dropped, let us undrop the but now the message says first TB was restored successfully. Whatever the database that we got dropped, that we are going to restore the database using the undrop command. Okay, let me refresh it. If you can see here, first DB got restored. Similarly, you can, if the schema got dropped intentionally or someone got deleted, or if someone dropped the schema, if they are going to someone drop the schema as well as someone, if someone is going to drop the any particular table, then we can undrop it. Let us drop the first schema. This is the drop schema and first schema. Just we need to select this. Now the first schema got dropped. Just refreshing here. If you can see here under our first TB, first schema is not available. If you want to undrop it, if you want to restore it, we need to execute the command undrop schema on first schema. First schema successfully got restored. Okay. Similarly, let us drop in one of the table. We have the under first DB, under first schema, we have one table named as a data. If you want to drop and restore, let us drop and restore it. So first let us drop the data. Data got successfully dropped. Now let us undrop this. Table got restored successfully. Similar, if you can, the drop command is used to permanently delete the in the database schema or table. If you are going to use the undrop, then we can restore the whatever the object that we have dropped, we can restore it using the undrop command. Okay, there is a conflict here. Let us consider a scenario where we have the data as one particular table which is already exist. So let us now the scenario here is we have the DB, under this we have the data. Now let us drop this particular data table. So now we have dropped this particular under our first schema. There is no table is present and we don't have any kind of table here. Okay. So now let us create another table with the same name. Create table data serial number 4. I am creating one table. Now the table got created successfully. If you can see here, so this is the new table with the one column serial number I have created. There is a earlier untable with the same name data with the two particular columns serial number and name. Okay. Now our requirement is whatever the table that I got dropped earlier, I need to restore it back. Okay. Now let us try to undrop the table that we have dropped. See, it says that object data already exists. the table with the same name already exists. So there is a naming conflict that got arised. So Snowflake is not able to retrieve the data. So what to do in that scenario? We need to modify the table name. We need to change the table name. Then our data current table that presently we are working got modified to data one. Now you can use the execute the copy command. You can execute the undrop command now. Now the table data successfully restored. If you can see here, there are the two tables, data and data one. As there is a naming conflict. When you if you already the object that you got dropped, and if you have the object with the same name created again, then the naming conflict arises. Once the naming conflict arises, then Snowflake cannot retrieve the object with the same names. So we need to modify the name. We need to modify the object name that currently we are working, and we need to move on. Any doubts here, guys? Give me a minute. I will be back. Yeah, sorry, guys. So that is how we are going to resolve the naming conflicts. Any doubts how we are going to resolve the naming conflict here? Actually, if the object exists with the same name, we need to modify the name and we need to resolve the conflict. Raju, you were asking about this alter command, right, Raju? It's a alter is a command which we need to, if you are going to modify any of the object level, then we are going to use the alter command. It's a simple syntax that we are going to use using the SQL. If you are familiar with a SQL, alter you are going to use using the alter as similarly create, you are going to alter the account. We are altering the account level and we are going to set the we are going to set the parameter minimum data retention equal to 95 days. We are trying to do this. Okay, we are using the alter command. Alter is a command which you are going to use to modify. Okay, Raju, actually your voice is not audible, Raju. Once you,
Yeah, I'm audible to you.
yeah, yes, yes, yes.
Yeah, that's the only question. Like, why
Yeah, yeah.
you use that alter?
Alter is used for the modifying something, modifying at the account level. If you as similar to if you are going to insert any records into the table, right? We use the insert command.
Yeah,
Similarly, if you want to
like
modify,
there,
yeah, sorry,
there also you written that retention percentage symbols, right,
yeah,
before and
retention
after.
percentage actually, yeah, this is the, it's like a, I mean to say regular expression. Did you hear something about any regular expression? So let
No.
me, yeah, actually we have the wild characters like regular expression, underscore and percentages. If the whatever is present in the entire account, here you have the in the entire account. If anything sees the retention percentage means this could be anything between this percentage, in anything before retention and anything after present after n. Accept it and retrieve the data. Let us execute this one. If you see here you have obtained the two parameters. Let me modify this. No, now I am removing this percentile. I am removing. So now, as per my, now it must not retrieve this minimum underscore this one, right? This parameter must not be retrieved as per the wild character. Let us execute this. Why? Because here what? So here we haven't received the second parameter because the percentage what it will do is percentage it will consider whatever the data that is present before retention. It can consider whatever the data that is present before the retention and whatever that is data that is present after n. it will try to match, it will look for the retention word in the entire parameters, and it don't consider the data, whatever the data it can be present before retention or after retention, it will accept all the data and it will fetch it. If you see here, show parameters like, here I am not using the percentile. So Snowflake evaluates that the value must start with the data. So it had ignored the minimum underscore. Okay, able to get me?
Yeah, little bit confused.
Yeah, okay. Actually, this is the concept which the regular expression percentile and actually, we need to have a little idea in the SQL. No worries, we'll try to explain. Yeah, let me explain you once again. Actually, yeah, or else I can explain you tomorrow how we can deal with the wild characters, regular expressions and all. You need to have a little idea on SQL here. So actually, percentage, let us just consider that percentage means accept every words or character present in the before the retention. Here after n, we are giving the 2%. Before or and after n, I am giving the percentages. Okay. So what we are saying is before retention, whatever the data that is present, uh, consider the data and fetch the details. After n, whatever the data that is present, consider the data and that is retrieve the parameters. If I execute this, I am getting two parameters: data retention and minimum data retention. If I try to execute the date this particular query, you can see minimum underscore will be ignored because Snowflake is trying to compare the values with the value must start with the data underscore retention. Here the Snowflake is trying to evaluate all the parameters that contain the retention value. It doesn't bother with the whatever the data that it is going to start in this query. But in this query, it must start with the data underscore retention. Okay, let me execute this. If you can see here, only one parameter I have retrieved using this. Why? Because it is going to start with the data. If I execute it again, it will retrieve two. The retention is present in middle and data which is present before it is going to get ignored. Still not able to get that?
Yes. Yeah, 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 I got it.
Yeah, it's a wild card. It's like pattern matching. Retention is the word that it will identify, and whatever the values that is present before and after, it will ignore it. In the case of this query, the data must start with the data underscore retention in underscore days. Okay, so whatever the days after, if let us give here in underscore percentile. If you are going to give the percentile here as well, so it will try to identify the data with the data retention time underscore days. Whatever the data that is present before and after this, it will be considered and it will fed the values. Yeah. Let us execute it for using a different data. So, Snowflake what had done is wherever the data is present, it had fetched all the details. The data, whatever the date before the data, there could be anything. After the data, there could be anything. If I remove the percentage here, the values that it will be returned will always start with the data only. So data. So my requirement is start with anything, but it must end with the data. This is our requirement. Then this will be our scenario. There are no values that start with anything and end with a percentile. If I want to retrieve the parameters that start with anything and end with a, then we need to execute this. There are nothing like that. Similarly, if you can, let us give as a yes. So these are the parameters which ends with a s. If you can see, all the parameters that end with a s has retrieved. Similarly, if you want to retrieve the parameters that start with a s, just give s and give percentile. These are all the parameters that start with a s. We try to retrieve all the parameters that start with a s. So what I am trying to do here is I want all the parameters that contain the value retention, and what the values before the retention and after the retention I am not bothering about. Just retrieve the values where we contain the retention, which parameters that contain the retention.
Okay, these are the two parameters that contains the value retention, which is the data. So it's like a wild characters, it's like a pattern matching. We are trying to match the pattern. Okay, able to understand, Raju? Do you want me explain it again?
Yeah, yeah, yeah. No, 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 no.
Yeah,
Clearly,
yeah, actually this will
like
actually
whatever the word we need to match between the wild cards, right?
yes, yes, exactly.
Is it
Whatever the
there or not?
exactly, exactly. Just actually, it would be very see if you want to any if you want if you want any parameter that start with A, just simply give it as a percentile and try to execute it. See, if you want to end anything after A, these are the parameters that start with A. If you want to give any, if you want to retrieve all the parameters that end with S, just give percentile S. Percentile just ignores all the values before S. Okay, this is how it is. Actually, it's
Like
a
this wild cards only used in to retrieve data, or any other commands also we can
in
use
the
this
pattern matchings. Actually,
while
wildcards, regular expressions is it's a concept in the wildcards will come in the concept known as a regular expressions. Regular expressions is a wild. It's a I mean to say it's very vast knowledge area where if you are expertise in regular expressions, you can map the patterns. You try to retrieve the any kind of data based on a certain pattern. For this, we will use the two. Usually, we use the two characters, which is underscore. Underscore will ignore or any one character, whereas percentile will ignore maximum all the characters. Okay, these are the two characters which we're using to work with the regular expressions, underscore and percentile. Okay, at the end of the
okay.
actually we'll try to actually we require a little SQL knowledge to understand this regular expression. Okay,
Yeah.
yeah. Hope everyone understood this how we are going to resolve the naming conflict. If you are trying to undrop the same object, then we need to rename the particular object on the current session. Then we need to then we are going to restore or undrop the particular query. Okay, yeah, let us execute this. So as of now we have only two rows in this particular table. Now let me insert. Now I have inserted one record and try to retrieve all the fields present, all the rows present in the table. We have three different rows here. Now the requirement is, now if you want to retrieve the data, if you want to see the data, how the data looks like before 1 minute, then we are going to use the offset. Offset is a keyword that where we are going to view the value in a seconds. If we are trying to navigate back in terms of seconds, what is the number of seconds that we are trying to, we can, this is the value we are going to specify how many seconds we need to travel back. Okay, we are going to select star from data. This is the table that I want to see the data of this particular table at before 1 minute. Let me execute this. So before 1 minute, actually recently I have inserted this data, right? Which is less than 1 minute. Before 1 minute, we have only two records. Okay. So we are traveling back 1 minute and looking and seeing how our data looks like when 1 minute back. Okay. Let me insert the another two records. So so now we have five records. Okay. So I guess we have 1 minute have completed after this in record got inserted. Let me execute this again. So we are trying to travel back 1 minute and look how our data in that particular table is present. Okay. See, we have retrieved the three records. Before 1 minute, we have a three records, but between 1 minute and the current state, we have inserted those two records which we haven't able to retrieve. Okay. So using the offset, we can travel back into a number of seconds. If you want to travel back for a 300 seconds, you need this value must be passed only in a seconds. Okay. Based on 300 seconds into, if you want to travel back 5 minutes, then you need to give 60 star 5. If it will consider to travel back 5 minutes back and it will retrieve the data. However, how that particular point of time, how our tables look like. Okay. This is how the offset is used. Offset is used to travel back in the based on the number of seconds. Okay. Now our particular table contains six records, five records, 1, 2, 3, and 5, 8. These are the five records our table contains. So let us see. We have, for every query that you execute in Snowflake, there will be a statement ID, query ID. We will call it as a query ID, a statement ID. So if you navigate to here, query history, under monitoring, there will be a tab named as a query history. For all the queries that you got executed, there will be a query ID. Okay. So our requirement is now you don't know the time, what is the particular time that you have inserts are happened. So for every query there will be a query ID. So let us consider after this is the query ID that it got utilized to insert the record, this particular record. So in order to insert the particular record with a serial number 8, this is the query ID that it got used. So let us enter it. So here, in order to insert these values 5 and ACVF, this is the query ID that it got utilized. So let us consider I want to view the data at this particular point of time. Based on this query ID, we can view what is the data that is present in this table. Currently, our table has 5 records. Okay, 5 records with a 1, 2, 3, and 5, 8. So I want to view the data before inserting this record. I want to view the data before inserting this record. So we can use the query ID. Using this query ID, you can use what is the how the data looks like after this data got inserted at this particular point of time. I mean to say at this particular statement got executed, how our data is going to look like. Simply we can execute it from the using that statement. You are going to use the select star from at statement. Whatever the statement that it got utilized, just you are going to pass it. This is the statement. So here the objective is the data 8 got inserted after executing this query. So 8 must not retrieve in the result. Just simply I'm executing this. If you can see here 1, 2, 3, 5. Why? Because 8 got executed of 8 got inserted after this query ID, after this query got executed. So we are trying to retrieve the data based on the query ID. How the data looks like at this particular point of time when this query ID got utilized and after this query ID got executed, how the data looks like. This is how we can travel back into time as well using the statement. Statement is nothing but a query ID. For every query that you execute in Snowflake, you will get one query ID. Based on that query ID also, we can try to retrieve the data, how that data is present after executing that query. Okay. Similarly, there is another option based on the timestamp. Today it's a 27 Feb. I'm trying to navigate. It's a local LTZ is a local time zone. I'm trying to utilize the local time zone plus 5:30 GMT. So, how our data looks like in this particular table at 8:30. 8. Let me give it as 8:35. I'm trying to retrieve the data. Now we have 5 records. Now let us see how our data is present at the 8:35 in this particular table. We have only 2 records. Earlier, right, we have inserted only 2 records at that 8:35 at our local time Tuesday 22nd February at 8:35. Our table contains only these 2 records. We have traveled back into time for 8:35 and we are seeing that what are the number of records that our table contains. These are the 2 records that our table contains at 8:35 and 27th Feb. Okay, so in using the time travel, we can travel back into time using the offset. If you are going to use the offset, then we are going to mention the time in seconds. If you are using the statement, then we are going to use the statement ID at that particular after executing that particular statement, how our data looks like. From where you are going to get the statement ID means you are traveling back into the monitoring field and query history. From here we are going to query the copy. We are going to copy the query and we are going to get it and we are going to execute that. Any doubt? Someone is trying to speak it.
అదే
Hello?
మాట్లాడి మార్చింది కదా నెల అని
Yeah. So this is how we are going to retrieve using the at any particular point of. So similarly, before you can use the before command as well. Before is a statement how the data looks like before 1 minute. If you are going to execute this, just we are trying to retrieve the data before 1 minute. Before 1 minute we have the same data whichever we have it. So let us execute how the data looks like before executing this command. See, 5 is the data that this query utilized. This query ID is this which utilized to insert the value 5. I am trying to see the data before inserting this record how our data looks like means it contains only 3 records 1 2 3. This is how we are going to use the at and before command at and before, and we are trying to travel back in time and trying to look how our data looks like at that particular point of time. Okay, similarly there is another concept known as a clone. Cloning is nothing but a copying table. We are going to copy table using here also you can use the three different values like offset, timestamp and statement. How the data looks like at that particular point of time, and we are trying to copy the entire data into our new table that we are going to clone the data. So here I am going to give it as a 180 seconds. I'm trying to copy. I'm going to create a new table clone offset, and we are from the table data we are going to clone all the data that is present in the data. We are going to copy all the data into cloned offset table when at before 130 seconds, before 180 seconds means before 3 minutes. Let us give that as a 5 minutes as 300. So whatever the data that is present 5 minutes back in the table data, that data need to be copied into the cloned offset table. Let us execute this. So in this command, what we are trying to do is whatever the data that is present in the table data before 5 minutes, we are going to copy entire data into just cloning is nothing but a copying. We are going to copy entire data into the cloned offset table. Let me execute this. So before 5 minutes, this is we have all the 8 records. If you are trying to move to the other than 5 minutes, 10 minutes, let me give it as a let us try to copy before 10 minutes. So before 10 minutes, we have only 3 records in this particular table data. So whatever the data, these records, we are going to have copied, cloned into this clone data offset. Using the offset, we are traveling back 600 seconds here, and how the data looks like, just we are copying entire data into a cloned offset table. Okay. Similarly, this clone can be done using the query ID same way. So after if you execute this, we need to get the value 5 as well. Okay. Let me execute this. We are using the statement. We are going to clone the at that particular point. After executing this query ID, how the data looks like, all this data need to be copied into clone statement. Okay. Let us run this. See, this is the statement. This is the data that we got inserted for using this query ID. So our current statement table has only 5 records. This is how we can clone the statement using the timestamp as well. Just I'm utilizing the timestamp plus 835. Just I'm modifying the time. So what I'm trying to do is I am trying to create the new table named as a cloned at timestamp. Use what I'm trying to ask to Snowflake is copy the data at that particular point of time, how the data looks like in this particular table data, copy all the data into cloned at timestamp table. Okay, let me execute this. Sorry, it's actually Tuesday, right? Today. Okay. Yeah. At 8:35 today, this table data has only two records, or those two records got copied into cloned data stamp table. Okay. This is how using the one second. So now you are going to use the either I mean to say at or before. You are going to use the either at or before, and you are going to use the undrop, or we are going to clone. If you want to look at any particular time how the data looks like, then you will use the command select. Using the select command, you can travel back into time and you can see how the data looks like. So if you want to copy entire data how the data looks like at that particular point of time, then you will use the command clone. Okay. Unexpectedly, if you have dropped, or intentionally or unintentionally, if you have dropped any of the object, database object, or schema, then you'll use the command undrop to restore back all the data. This is what the concept of time travel. It's maximum you can travel back for a 90 days period. We can retrieve or restore the data that we have lost or intentionally or unintentionally deleted. Okay. So there is another concept named as a failsafe. Once the data retrieval period is completed, whatever the data that we have tried to retrieve, in standard edition we don't have a time travel, right? So once that, if you are using organization standard edition and you don't have a time travel period, despite of that, if you want to if you want to try to retrieve the data, you cannot retrieve the data using the time travel. So you can take the help from the Snowflake support and you can try to retrieve the data for a maximum of 7 days. These 7 days cannot be configurable, like failsafe cannot be configured for 3 days, 4 days. It cannot be extended beyond the 7 days. 7 days is the maximum period that if our data had lost, then we can reach to the Snowflake support and we can ask them to retrieve our data. So they can try to retrieve our data for a maximum of 7 days. Okay. So actually the failsafe is not designed or intended to for the data retention. It was exclusively designed for the failures. If any unexpected things happen due to cyclones or something, if any hardware failure happens, then in that case only we need to utilize the failsafe. It's like a backup recovery. It's like a, if you can see here, it's like a backup recovery. It's not like the data retention. It's not like the data retention for the data. It's like a recovery service utilized, provided by the Snowflake to utilize for the consumers. Okay, it's not like the data retention policies. In case of any hurdles or any cyclones, if our hardware got failed, then you can also take the support from the Snowflake and you can try to retrieve back our data for the maximum of 7 days. Okay. Any doubts here? Time travel and fail safe. There is no doubts. Let's move to the, actually it's only 5 minutes is there. I thought of explaining these micro partitions as well today and columnar storage. Okay. We'll discuss this tomorrow. Micro partitions and column. What do you mean by columnar? So these are the different types of partitions we have in the different traditional warehouses. List partitioning, range partitioning. We'll discuss that topic tomorrow. Okay. Hope everyone understood this time travel and failsafe. Practice these queries based on today's session. If any doubts, let me know. Thank you all. Good day.
Mohan has small doubt. Mohan.
Yes, please go ahead.
Hello.
Yeah, please go ahead.